How's it going, everyone? Today is a very exciting video. As you can tell from the title, I'm going to be putting some brand new suspension on my 2008 Saab 9.3 Turbo X. If you saw one of my recent videos, pretty much I complained about how many leaks both this car and my 2003 9.3 were both experiencing. Now, I have fixed the vacuum leak on this car. If you want to see that video, make sure to check it out up here. And today we're going to be fixing the leak coming from the suspension. So right after I finished up doing the brakes on this car, I noticed a puddle under it. And under further inspection, I noticed there was some liquid pulled up here on both sides. Springs were also covered in whatever fluid comes inside a coilover. So these coilovers are quite old. They're also a bit rusty, as you'll see as we take them out. So needless to say, it's time for them to be replaced just because they're wear items on a car. These old coilovers that you see are Maptun Gen 1 coilovers, which they actually stopped making back in 2016. And today we're going to be installing some Maptun Gen 2 coilovers, or what they call their XT series coilover kit. Before we unbox this though, I do want to give a huge thank you to Maptun and Swedish Motorsports for sponsoring this video. If you're in the United States, make sure to check out Swedish Motorsports. If you're outside the US, make sure to check out Maptun. Swedish Motorsports is pretty much the same thing as Maptun, just based in the US. Both of their websites will be down below in the description. Maptun offers a wide variety of aftermarket parts for these Saabs, not just for the new generation 9.3, also for the 9.5 as well, and older 9.3s and a lot of Saabs, to be honest. And they're really big on tuning kits. As you guys know, I have a custom tune from Maptun on this car. I've had Maptun tunes on my cars for a long time, and I have nothing but good things to say about Maptun. They're, in my opinion, probably the best option for Saab tuning, and especially for aftermarket parts. They make very high quality parts. And if you guys can't afford coilovers for your 9.3, but you want to do something suspension-wise, they do make a great lowering spring kit that we installed on the Project Saab. I'll link that video in the top corner, but lowering springs are a great budget option. We have our two front coilovers in here. It says Maptun right on here as well. That's pretty freaking cool. Back springs and height adjusters right here. Here we have some spanner wrenches and just like some basic other tools. I think these are called spanner wrenches, the wrenches you use to adjust the ride height on the coilovers. And then it looks like some basic instructions. They also have a PDF step-by-step on their website for installing these, so if you're doing this job, you might want to check that out and download it and print it. This video is going to be pretty long, so I guess without further ado, let's go ahead, move the car into the center spot of the engine bay, jack it up, get the wheels off, and we can start installing this new suspension. One thing I also completely forgot to mention before I do that is I plan on raising the ride height a little bit. I mentioned that these are height adjustable, so these are pretty much, at least from what the previous owner told me, we'll probably be able to tell when we get the car, or when we get them off the car. These are adjusted to pretty much their lowest setting. So I definitely rub a little bit in the front, but also I don't rub in the back, but if you look, the wheel does not sit flush with the fender. I've never really been a huge fan of that, so I'm thinking I'm going to raise the car maybe about 1/2 inch all around, and then I want to get some spacers for the back so it sits out flush against the fender well. And it'll also help me just with regular drivability. I won't have to be so worried about scraping over things or anything. I think only raising it 1/2 inch will still give it a really low and aggressive stance to it. Anyways, get one final look at what this car looks like with its current suspension setup. It's been a couple of weeks since I filmed the intro, and the reason for that is last weekend, and that's why you'll see the first section of this video is going to be in a completely different garage. I actually went over to my buddy's house last weekend and we tried to do the coilovers, and we got the front passenger one off, and then we realized that the end links that are on the car now are actually shorter. They're about half the length that they need to be. This is an OEM end link. So I ordered 2 new end links because the Gen 2 coilovers are made to fit OEM length end links. So I have 2 new end links, 4 new nuts. Pretty much I'm going to roll all of that footage now from when I was over at my buddy's house, and then once that's all done, which is when we're ready to put the new front suspension in, I'll cut back to the footage being filmed here. But I pretty much have to repeat all this stuff you're about to see, which sucks, but you know, it happens.
Yep. Just coming back, stuff like that.
The suspension is loosening up a little. 13.
That was a good sound.
I heard it hit the ground. Oh, it's all the way under here. Oh no, it's leaking everywhere. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Don't worry.
See how rusted these just became over time? Fluid that dripped out everywhere. Yeah, so there's definitely a few differences for when we can camber adjustment there, I guess.
Definitely need an alignment.
I definitely need an alignment. I needed an alignment before, but I'll need one even.
But you can really dial it in with these.
Yeah, so it's time to throw this one on now. There are a bunch of different adjustments on this. There's camber, there's like 5 different colors that we can adjust. So there's a special, in the instructions from Maptun, there's a special like preload setting that you're supposed to go to. So we're gonna set it up for that right now.
So that's not perfect because it's up a little bit, but
so we're marking on the screwdriver here where the ride height is at for when we do the other side. So that way we can make sure they're the same on both sides to start, and then if we need to, we can adjust it in the future. Back to present me. So the old suspension is out, and I'm pretty much back at the same point where I was when I realized that I couldn't put these coilovers in. So we have the old coilover right here. It's been leaking fluid everywhere. I had to clean it up a couple of times, but you can see just all the fluid that's pooled up in there. It smells horrid. Here's where my issue was. This is the end link that I just took off of the car, and this is the end link, the new one that I ordered, the genuine OEM Saab end link, and you can see the difference in the lengths. So now we're ready to go ahead, put our new end link on, put our new coilover on, and then we can go ahead and do the same on the driver's side, and we'll move to the back. So you're pushing that all the way to the top, huh?
I want to push it, yeah, all the way to the top.
Because that'll be the closest.
If you want to adjust it down, so that's touching now. So I'll back it off to here, and then that's where we'll set it. I think that's where it's supposed to be anyways, but if it ends up being too floppy in the front end for you, like if it body rolls too much,
right,
then you can come back and set these tighter.
Got the new sway bar link in there. New coilover is roughly in the position. You got the bottom bolt through already, or the bottom nut on. We're sliding both of these bolts back in now, and we'll put the nut on. And then we'll tighten these up here. Tighten down the end link, and we should be just about good to go. So we just used a 5mm Allen wrench to tighten this down right in here for the end link. This side is all done. Got the new end links in. This end link collar, whatever the technical name for it, is pushed all the way up. We didn't mess with any of these at all, so it's kind of just like the base setting, I guess you could say. But the other side is measured up to be the exact same, so we're going to throw that in now. I'm not going to record it because it's the same exact process. And we'll move on to the back. But we do have a nice Saab collection going on right here. We've got our 9.3 Aero, 9.5 Aero, we got Lucas's Dame 9.5 Aero that is dirty written on it, and a little bit of profanity right there. I'm not going to show, so I'm not trying to get demonetized. Got Dylan's 9.2X Aero, and we got my other 9.3, so and a scooter.
I'll adjust for camber out or camber in. You can do that when you get an alignment done.
Right, so we're just setting the camber even on both sides, kind of at the middle setting right here, just with the Allen key. All right, so we're
Yeah, we're gonna want to get new hardware.
Oh wow, yeah, we're definitely gonna get some new hardware on that.
I live for this.
Yeah, these are pretty messed up. So we're gonna go up to Ace Hardware and get some matching bolts. We're gonna need 6 of them, 3 for each side, because These probably aren't going to be good to reuse. So if you're doing this job, you might want to order some new ones from Saab beforehand.
Another thing, if you're doing this job, do yourself a favor and replace these what are these, Torx Plus bolts? Just replace them with regular hex head bolts. That way the next time you go in to do this job, you don't worry about stripping these teeth off of here, and you don't have to worry about having a special socket for it either.
Yeah, camera was out of focus for all that, but these E-sockets, not as good as the hex ones, so we're going to get some hex ones, but we'll figure it out. We got the 3 bolts out, or at least loose, and then there's one more bolt down here, and we should be able to take it all apart.
Alright, hopefully I don't get my legs crushed. Don't need them anyways, right?
So we're pulling out this last bolt that holds the shock in. Kind of hard to see, but it's way down under there.
Oh my sweet Jesus.
Alright, so now we've got to take off the spring.
Alright, so right here, it's what we like to call a spring delete.
Spring delete.
That's right. You don't need any of the bouncy stuff, you just need the good old-fashioned dampening.
That's what rust will do. It's just
Really,
the paint.
Jacob? Is that what rust does?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So we finally got it out, but we broke the mount that sits on the control arm off. So it's stuck inside here. The mount that's on there just completely snapped off. When we pulled that part off, this came off with it, and now I have a nice hole right in my control arm. And that's not supposed to be like that. So that's terrific. So we're going to take this whole control arm off in order to try to get this back in temporarily so I can at least lower the car off the jack stands. But this video is going to be continued at a later day because we still have to do the entire other side, and we're running out of daylight right about now. But control arm is just about coming out. The process of getting this rear control arm out, the exhaust clamp was in the way, and that snapped off too from rust. So I need a new exhaust clamp, but that's fine. So now we're trying to use this vise over here to put this back in. So we're putting the control arm back in with our temporary fix. We're actually going to the junkyard tomorrow, so I'm going to grab a new control arm here and also a control arm for that side in case the same thing happens, which very good chance it will. So then we'll have 2 perfectly functioning control arms, but this will be good enough to get the car off jack stands and move it back to this spot. But my
Jacob,
exhaust is not where it should be right now.
Why don't you tell the nice people some useful information?
Yeah?
The part numbers for 03 to 07, and then I assume 07 to
All NG93s, yeah.
NG93. The rear control arm has the same part number for a front-wheel drive, cross-wheel drive, or a Turbo X, so they all use the same parts.
All use the same. When we had that one off, we compared it to the Arrow right here, and they look to be exactly the same. Double-checked on these Saab parts, so I think we'll be good to go. So he's putting the new spring seat in for the new coilover. So we're gonna put the new coilover on this side. So he's putting the spring seat on top and bottom, and then we have our nice little new spring sitting right here. Pretty good comparison, old and new. This is the Gen 1 spring. This is the Gen 2. So this looks more like a stock spring, even though it's by no means a stock spring. It's still much shorter than a stock spring, but they're very different looking, so pretty interesting.
The lower spring seat, and I'm sure he showed you this in the rest of the video. So this has a larger diameter, and that's going to keep that little locator for the spring down here.
This is the bottom part, by the way. Yeah.
So that's going to keep that locator from seizing or sticking to the inside of that and prevent what we just spent 2 hours.
2 hours doing.
With. You can look at that and tell that that black newer one has a larger diameter than the old one.
Which is a good thing.
It is a good thing, so this doesn't happen again.
Yep. All right, so we got to throw this in real quick and then put the new strut in, or shock in, excuse me, and then we'll be all done. Hey, there we go.
Oh, guys, I missed the video.
You missed it.
Let's go to the video.
Ah, yeah. That's the old coilover though, right? That's not part of the mount.
Well, guys, that's the 5th bolt to break today.
You're gonna need a new mount, guy.
Are you serious?
Look at how seized that is in there. You're not getting that thing out of there.
2 hours later.
Not necessarily the most successful day, but the front suspension is in. The spring back there is in. I need to order the 2 shock mounts. I'll put a picture on the screen right here. Unfortunately, those are specific to the cross-wheel drive, but I will get new control arms since those are the same at a junkyard to save a little bit of money. This side in the back is still completely stock. We just had to kind of put that back.
1 week later.
Weekend number 3 trying to do the coilovers on this car. So I have a variety of both new and junkyard parts here that will pretty much remedy all the issues that we ran into with the back end of this car last weekend because of rust. As you might have seen in a recent video, I went to the junkyard, I got 2 new rear control arms. These are off of a front wheel drive 9.3, but thankfully the front wheel drive and cross wheel drive control arms are exactly the same. Now, one thing that's not the same, unfortunately, are these shock mounts. Now, these bolt straight to the frame of the car pretty much, and the end of the shock pretty much slides right inside of there. The cross wheel drive ones are much beefier and stronger, so I ordered 2 new ones of these from Saab parts. Lastly, I think I already mentioned this, I'm going to explain it again. The reason why I even had to replace these control arms is because the old coilover was seized onto this nub, and that was because there was no rubber boot that is supposed to be on here. It wasn't on there. Now, on Saab parts, I didn't realize that I didn't think that I would need these until like Wednesday, and I ordered these on like last Saturday. So instead of ordering them and having to wait even longer, I had my buddy pick me up a couple of front-wheel drive ones from the junkyard. So these will still fit over here. We might have to cut them a bit to make them work. And you technically don't need them, but it'll probably be better to have these on. In this video though, I'm not going to be giving a review of driving on these coilovers. I'll save those for a completely different video just because, 1, this video is already super long, and 2, the car desperately is going to need an alignment. I'm also going to have to adjust this these coilovers off camera to get the ride height and the stiffness and the camber and everything right. But I've done a lot of talking in this video. You guys want to see me get the new suspension on, so let's go ahead and finish this up. Now that I'm actually ready to properly put the rear suspension, I want to show how I'm setting the ride height. This is the rear spring seat adjuster. There's 2 different ways you can put it in. You can either put it on the bottom right here, or you can also put it on the top. So it's kind of cool how Maptun makes it, I guess, interchangeable. Of course, that dictates where the spring is pointing upwards or going down, I guess. But I am pretty much going to be putting it in the middle setting. So I have a few threads below, a few threads above. So I'm going to get this even on both of them, and we'll be ready to throw the spring back in and put the new control arm on. After I get these set, we can assemble the shock to the new shock mount, and then we can throw it all back together and do the other side, and then we'll hopefully be done. So here's what we're going to go with. We're going to put the spring seat at the top like I had mentioned earlier. That way we have rubber at the top and bottom. So the spring is going to go this way. We just need to slide it in the car now, and we'll put the shock together, and he's already doing it.
That's a good option. That's the right way.
Slide that right over there. We've got a couple washers.
So that picks it up off the top of that a little more. This gives you the surface for the nut.
And then we got our locking nut that we have to tighten down onto there. And we can throw her in the car. There's our new stainless steel hardware in there. And we got to tighten this down now, and then we'll be all done with this side, and we can move on to the other side.
Boomer-like.
Boomer-like.
Larry's gonna get some of this shiny stuff.
Larry is his 9000 Aero, which you guys will be seeing on the channel in a few videos, probably relatively soon. This bushing that's inside this control arm was a little bit messed up when we pulled it out the junkyard, so we're kind of just using a vise right now to push it back together. And the
by a little bit messed up. You see the distance that bushing is sticking out here and here. On this one, it had walked out, so it was sticking out farther on this side than it was on this side. So the only part of the bushing that was in was on this part of the control arm. It wasn't actually engaged in here. So if we had put it back on that way, it would have just kind of wallered that side out until it eventually just loosened out of the control arm entirely.
Car's all done. We don't have new exhaust clamps. Had to order those on Amazon, so we're going to be running the car. I mean, I'm not going to drive it, but that's the end of the exhaust right there. We're going to drop it down, torque the wheels down, start her up, see how she sounds.
Now you just want to make sure that you let this all go at once. So
All
it
at
slams
once,
onto the
yeah.
ground and seats everything.
Well, that's how we got to test to make sure the new suspension's
Exactly.
good. There you have it, guys. New coilovers are finally on the car. Now, I am still waiting on these new exhaust clamps to get in. So I'm just running the car out of the Turbo X muffler. So it's a little bit louder and deeper than normal. Next step for this car is an alignment. After I get an alignment, I'll do a video giving some first impressions driving the car, how it handles, how it feels, everything like that. So definitely stay tuned for that. Additionally, I'm probably going to mess with the ride height some more. I think the back is good. If you remember, I set it right in the middle pretty much, and I'm pretty happy with that ride height. It's sitting a little bit higher, and hopefully that's high enough to where I can run some spacers. The front is sitting just a hair higher than it was before, and the suspension is also set softer, so I haven't adjusted the stiffness either. So what I'd like to do is raise this a little bit so I have the same gap between the front and rear, because you'll notice there's more space in the rear than there is in the front between the wheel and the fender. I'll even that out, and then lastly, I just want to give one final shout out to Maptun and Swedish Motorsports for sponsoring this video. If you guys need anything aftermarket for your Saabs, whether that be tuning, suspension like this, anything, they have so many aftermarket parts. Go explore their website, because you'll probably find at least 10 things that you're going to want for your Saab, not just your 9.3. They have stuff for 9.5s, they have stuff for older Saabs too. But with that being said, guys, that's all I've got for today. Pretty long video, I know, but I'm super happy to finally have this car pretty much back on the road. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already to help support me and the channel, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching.